targets, headlines and fun, true crime tales and a wild rerun. Bits of news to brighten your day in the latest, wackiest, petty expressway. Scandals, gators, space coast too, crimes that baffle and headlines askew. When the world gets dark, we bring the cheer. Newsy nuggets, the good, the grim, the weird is here.
Hey, you guys, it's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and we've got a bit of a longer newsy nugget, but this is a murder that may have presidential implications. Now, not our president, the president of Kenya, or at least the former one, and his son, but still didn't want to put that on the headlines and give people the speculation that this was our president, but it does have links to a president. Excuse me. Former president's son implicated in safari murder of a British woman. The son of former Kenyan president has been implicated in the red rum of a young British woman in a newly unearthed evidence. Julie Ward was unalived violently in the Maasai Mara game reserve in September 1988 at age 28. Most of her body was found burned, but part of her left leg and pieces of her jaw and skull were found intact. While officials initially tried to suggest that she might have self-deleted, been eaten by animals, or even struck by lightning, it quickly became clear that she had been unalived. She became the cause célèbre as her millionaire father relentlessly pursued her unalivers. But exact circumstances of Julie's death have never been solved. Now, for the first time, her family has revealed evidence in the case that shows that the Metropolitan Police spoke to a witness in 2011 who offered a major breakthrough. The witness gave an account of events that put John Moi, son of Daniel Arap Moi, the former Kenyan president, in the frame for the murder. Newly unearthed statements represented a significant advance in the murder investigation and reignited the Ward family's hopes that Julie's killer might finally face justice. They have spent more than 3 decades trying to solve Julie's murder and say that this is the strongest evidence yet that puts Mr. Moi in the area where the crime was committed at the time it was committed. However, in a move that has been heavily criticized by the family, the Met kept the statements hidden without fully investigating the claims. The Ward family believes that this is because of a cover-up orchestrated by the Foreign Office, or FCDO, involving the Met to preserve good relations with Kenya. At the time of Julie's death, Kenya was one of Britain's key defense allies in Africa. Whilst a cover-up by Britain has never been established, the Telegraph can disclose that the evidence was kept out of the public domain, with documents stating the key witness statements were reserved strictly for the use of the British police. Now, I will say that the UK has very different laws on what can be published about a case prior to it going to court. So I am not up to date on this. I know that there are YouTubers that are lawyers. I think Black Belt Barrister might be able to give you a better insight. I am one that always loves a good cover-up, but this might be not a cover-up and just over caution to not prejudice a jury. We've seen this sort of, we're not letting anything out that might prejudice a jury in the Southport riot case, or the incident that sparked the Southport riots, the brutal butchering of 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance class by, I don't even want to say his name, by this absolute demon in a human body who has gone on to now attack police officers with scalding hot water, but that is a total other thing. That being said, it might not be a, total conspiracy. It could be an overabundance of caution by the Crown prosecution, um, you know, to not want to jeopardize any future, in any future trial. Now, that being said, this has been 3 decades. So if the suspect is still alive, I think we can kind of release this stuff. This was because of a potential risk of reprisals if the contents were divulged to the wrong person or at the wrong time. As a result, it remained under lock and key in a London police facility and was only shared with the wards after Mr. Moy's death from pancreatic cancer in 2019. Okay, the British government is a dick. Just for this. The witness statement was made by a former official at the safari camp in Maasai Mara, where Julie was found dead. The witness said that Mr. Moi stayed with them around the time Julie went missing, contradicting his previous evidence to police that he had been nowhere near the scene of the crime. The family are making the revelations public now because they've tried and failed to bring a complaint against the Metropolitan Police for alleged failures. Yeah, all the failures, you jerks. Julie's brother, Bob Ward, told the Telegraph that it was, quote, unthinkable that those statements with such vital information have been locked away in a safe in Lewisham for all these years, and that the chance to achieve justice for Julie may now have been missed. According to the testimony of a camp official, Mr. Moi and a small party had contacted the camp about making a booking in September 1988, around the time that Julie first went missing. Now, the group allegedly arrived late one evening and left it unexpectedly the next morning in a way that, quote, did not make sense, end quote, to the camp worker. The disclosure is significant because Mr. Moi had previously denied rumors of his involvement in Julie's murder or being anywhere near that area at that time. He had told Kenyan police in 1997 that he had been in one of his farms more than 150 miles away from the Maasai Mara throughout September when Julie died. He also said he had never been to the Maasai Mara, game reserve. Now, the Ward family has long suspected that Mr. Moi was involved in Julie's death, but before the camp's officials, statement, it was only based on rumor and evidence from someone who himself later admitted to being a unaliver. Former Detective Chief Superintendent Phil Adams, whose operation in Kenya obtained the statement, said that the camp official's account was, quote, finally something tangible and factual which put Mr. Moi in the vicinity of Julie's murder and supported a theory that he and his cronies were responsible. He added that in his personal view, it was Jonathan Moi did go out that night and he'd taken advantage of Julie. I think he's either responsible for her death or having taken advantage of her. He's got people to dispose of the body. The Met confirmed in a recent letter to the Ward family that in 2018, when the most recent investigation into Julie's murder was made inactive, Mr. Moi was the one remaining person of interest. By that point, the Met had been in possession of the camp official's statement for 7 years. Good God, the Met, right up there with Canton with, I don't know if it's evidence, I'm not going to look at it. Oh, someone said something? No need to investigate. This story is ticking me off, like daggone. Now, the Ward family did not obtain the statement until 2020 and have now shared it with the Telegraph. But the Wards claim that little was done to interrogate the information in the statement while Mr. Moi was alive. Mr. Adams told the Telegraph they were unable to investigate as normal because they had told the witness they would not pass information to the Kenyan police, but at the same time, the terms of the Met's engagement in Kenya meant that Kenyan police had to approve their plan. Quote, we said we'll keep it under lock and key there until you are comfortable with us opening it, using it in the investigation, and that's how it was left when I retired, Mr. Adams said. He added his officer wanted to obtain DNA from Mr. Moi to compare it against evidence, but that in the end, they did not make the request to the Kenyan police because they feared that they would have to explain why, and that would expose their informant. Mr. Adams was not in position to disclose the statements after his retirement, but it is believed that the Met did not share them with the Kenyan police. Julie Ward's murder was one of the most notorious unsolved murders mysteries of the late 80s, comparable to the disappearance of the estate agent Susie Lampew in the terms of the way it captured public attention. So, while I, as an American, haven't ever heard of this story until now, this must be a pretty big one in true crime circles over in the UK. It was largely down to John Ward, Julie's father, who spent more than £2 million of the fortune he had amassed as a hotelier trying to bring her killers to justice. In search for answers, he exposed a litany of failures by authorities in Kenya, who initially appeared reluctant to acknowledge that there had been a murder at all. The first pathologist to inspect Julie's remains said in his draft report that her bones were clean cut, implied that she'd been cut with an implement. However, Kenya's most senior pathologist, Dr. Jason Kavadi, altered the document before it could be given to the Ward family, so it said that her bones were cracked and torn, suggesting that wild animals were to blame. The amendment made Mr. Ward suspicious, and with his trust in authorities shaken, he took it upon himself to investigate his daughter's murder. He was relentless, and over the following years and decades, he helped to ensure that there was a second inquest in Suffolk and investigations by 4 different police forces. There were also 2 murder trials of 3 different people, including the head warden at the Maasai Mara Game Reserve, but all the suspects were acquitted. In 2004, the government that succeeded President Moi admitted that there was a potential cover up. Godoy, you don't think? Oh, really? They were only about as subtle as a sledgehammer in a china shop. Just change this pathology report here. The new Justice Minister Kiratu Moringe said that Mr. Ward's investigations did not get a quote adequate response from Kenyan authorities at the time, and that there appears to be some prima facie evidence of deliberate obstruction by some officials. Huh. Deliberate shenanigans in an African government to cover up crimes of people related to their president. This must be a whole new episode of human history. What perhaps has been more surprising is the battle that the Ward family have been faced with the authorities in Britain. In the days after Julie's death, John Ward was invited to a meeting with 2 men at the British High Commission. One of the men attempted to persuade him that Julie had been struck by lightning and eaten by hyenas. It later emerged that this man was an MI6 informant, while the other man was an MI6 agent. Yeah, what does Kenya have that Britain wanted so much that they were willing to put this under the rug, just like all of the grooming gangs? And I'm not going to call them what they really are because YouTube doesn't like that word. But gosh darn it, something needs to happen. I don't understand this. Oh, well, we need to keep community tensions. Again, as you can tell by my accent, not a Bretonian, not a Briton. So, I don't have the cultural understanding that underpins these sort of behavior patterns, but it confuses the ever living hell out of me as an outsider. Now, sometime later in 1990, Scotland Yard officers were brought in to look at Julie's death. Their inquiries led to the arrest of 2 rangers who stood trial for the murder in 1992 but were acquitted. The Ward family now believes that the Met deliberately bungled their investigation in the 90s in an attempt to, quote, pervert the course of justice. The relatives have spent the last 2 years pursuing a formal complaint against the Met Police in the hope that they would be able to persuade the force to acknowledge its failure and reopen parts of the investigation. In a letter handed to police and seen by the Telegraph, they said, quote, justice has not been served to the Ward family, let alone Julie. Our family have been seriously let down by the Metropolitan Police force of the past years. We believe due to the actions of the Metropolitan Police Service officers, a murderer remained free until his dying day and justice was not served for Julie or the Ward family. This is unacceptable to us. It's unacceptable to me, and I'm a Yank. I'm about to get, a St. George flag and go help. Well, I'd be arrested, but Over here, I'm about to get a St. George flag and just wave it around because this is some bull pocky. The wards added, "We strongly believe these actions were orders or instructions from higher up the chain of command, mainly FCDO, so the Foreign Affairs Office. The Metropolitan Police have declined to reinvestigate the ward's allegations that its officers participated in a cover up. We have judged ourselves and deem ourselves Canton worthy," saying that there had previously been cleared and the resources could be used elsewhere. A Met spokesperson told The Telegraph that it suspended the investigation in 2018 because it had exhausted all the lines of inquiry. This decision was not taken lightly, and our thoughts remain with Julie's family, who were updated accordingly. Yeah, I've never heard a bigger FU from a government person like, sorry your person died. We did a shitty job, but other rather than look at it and try to do a better job next time, we have stuff to do, like find people who are making mean memes on the internet. We've been clear that detectives would consider any new information provided to them to determine whether it presented a new and significant line of inquiry. So this is the Nairobi Law Monthly. Jonathan Moi killed Julie. Jonathan Ward's chilling account of a tourist murder in Mara and the cover up at the State House. So again, this might not be a case I'm familiar with, but in many different areas, this was a big case in Africa, in the UK. So I can imagine that non-justice in this case is shocking. It's going to piss a lot of people off, and things might happen if enough attention gets on it. Sadly, the family is having to go to the media to get attention because the Met won't investigate themselves, just like the UK government won't investigate itself about all those, well, gangs of a certain type that are abusing on an industrial scale the young children, young girls, young working class girls. It's just amazing that, we do all of this to keep social cohesion and allow really gross people out to victimize more people for social cohesion. Make it make sense. Make the equation make sense. Make not punishing people, screwing up children forever to keep the peace, make that equation square, because I don't understand how anyone with a straight face could. But let's get back to the article before I start ranting and using all the curse words. Now, this is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. A government spokesperson expressed sympathy for the Ward family and said that they deeply regret the fact that no one has been brought to justice in the case. Quote, "The Foreign Office has absolutely refuted any allegations of a cover up in this historic case," they added. Well, just like I believe all the feds when they tell me they're super duper doing a good job. I'm sure that alleviated everyone's, upsetness. As part of their complaint, the wards handed over a dossier of evidence of what they perceive as multiple failures over the years to probe Julie's death properly. They strongly criticized former Detective Chief Superintendent Ked Thompson for his failure to visit the site of Julie's remains during a 4-day scoping exercise in Kenya in 1990. Mr. Thompson said in his report he had been unable to go because of ground conditions. They also questioned why Mr. Thompson directed Kenyan police to Julie's Jeep without ensuring a forensic examination himself, and believed that he did so in the knowledge that it might hold valuable evidence. When other Met officers went to Kenya later that year, the Jeep had been dismantled and potential forensic evidence had been lost. Mr. Thompson has since passed, but at an inquest in 2004, he strongly defended the robustness of his work. "Oh my God, Yuri, you'll have a friend." I mean, he's no longer living, but apparently he did the bestest job ever. The wards also criticized the detective who took over from Mr. Thompson, citing a 2004 independent investigation by Lincolnshire Police. It said, quote, "The new Scotland Yard investigation into the murder of Julie Ward was poorly led, undersourced, and incompetent, and that significant lines of inquiry were ignored and forensic opportunities were missed." Despite these criticisms, the independent investigation found that there was insignificant evidence to support the allegation of a cover up. It doesn't have to be a cover up. It can be someone just fobbing off their job. It doesn't have to be a big old, conspiracy. It could be one officer in charge of the investigation who gives no Fs. No Fs because they know what they're going to say. They pick out the evidence that they need. They ignore everything else. And they're like, no, I solved the case. Now, former Detective Chief Superintendent Graham Cyril, who was senior investigating officer on the ground in 1990, told the Telegraph, quote, "Under the circumstances, we did the very best job we could. And I stress that under the circumstances, it wasn't the easiest place to work." His deputy, David Shipperley, added that the allegations of a Met cover-up were utter nonsense, and he doesn't believe the investigation was incompetent. The investigation, the independent one, was not able to get to the bottom of another disturbing finding that a witness statement made by John Ward was altered to water down his criticism of the Kenyan authorities. Now, the Wards believe it was done at the behest of the FCDO to preserve good relationship with the Kenyans. At the time of Julie's death, Margaret Thatcher's Britain donated a considerable sum of foreign aid to Kenya. Kenya also hosted and continues to host a huge training ground used to train British Army personnel. The British Army Training Unit at Kenya, 200 miles north of Nairobi, has a large enough area to train whole battalions and was used to ready personnel for the Falklands War. Now, the Wards believe that it would have been profoundly damaging to Britain's relationship with Kenya if the son of the president had been implicated in Julie's unaliving. They also firmly believe that Jonathan Moi was directly or indirectly responsible for her death, although this remains to be unproven. In their complaint to the Met, they have accused the force of making deliberate mistakes because it suited Britain to, quote, help aid a political ally and hide a murder. The first time Mr. Ward heard Jonathan Moi's name in connection with Julie's death was soon after her body was found. When a clothes seller in the Maasai Mara presented a note to Mr. Ward's hand, it bore the words, "The man you are looking for is Jonathan Moi Toratichi," his Kenyan name. And I've probably butchered that, but if he's a alleged douchebag, I really don't care. Now, some years later, he heard Mr. Moi's name again from a man called Valentine Aruhu Kodipo, who secured asylum in Denmark on the basis that he'd been part of a paramilitary unit. Now, he alleged he had witnessed several atrocities, including Julie being tortured and bludgeoned to death with a club. Mr. Kidopo claimed that Mr. Moi was present along with two senior political figures in Kenya, Nicholas Biwott, a former cabinet minister, and Noah Arape too, who was the director of the then Criminal Investigation Department. Nope, no cover up here whatsoever. Again, allegedly. Mr. Arap too has previously said he was in London at that critical time. Now all three men are dead, as is Mr. Kidapu. Now, Mr. Kidapu's testimony emerged in 1993 and his asylum claim was proved, suggesting there was at least some of his outlandish claims may have been seen as credible in some quarters. However, questions have been raised about the reliability of his evidence, including by a member of a unit who said there was no record of Mr. Kidopu. Mr. Ward also believed he caught him in a lie and one point dismissed him as a fantasist whose story was nothing more than a brilliantly constructed pack of lies. Now, Jonathan Moi responded to Mr. Kidopu's testimony with a statement claiming that he was not in the Maasai Mara at the time of Julie's death. Quote, "Throughout the months of September 1988, I was at my farm, Eldamita Ravine, which is more than 150 miles north of the Maasai Mara. I have a farm at Narok, a town relatively close to Maasai Mara. On the alleged date of September 6, I was at my farm in Eldama Ravine. I would also state that I have never been at the Maasai Mara Game Reserve, but at my farm in Narok." He added that he had nothing to do with the disappearance of the late Julie Ward. Newly emerged witness statements from the former camp official offered a potential way to disprove Mr. Moi's alibi. In a handwritten statement, the former camp official claimed that they had personally greeted Mr. Moi when they arrived around 10 p.m. shortly after September 11, 1988. Now, Julie's remains were found on September 13th, a week after she had first disappeared, and a postmortem suggested she had spent most of this missing week alive. Now, Mr. Moy's party allegedly left the next morning and never returned, which the camp official found unusual, the witness statement shows. One member of the party allegedly came back with an explanation a day or two later, claiming that they had gotten lost on their way to visit one of Mr. Moy's farms far away, but the former camp worker found this reason very odd. Quote, I could not understand why they would have gone to that farm as it was on a completely other side of, Mara to our camp. It didn't make sense for them to have booked our site, the witness said. Another source linked to the same camp also gave a statement which can only be disclosed now and provided letters from a camp official which corroborated some of the minor details. For the wards, these newly emerged documents shed some light on what may have happened to Julie, but the family is also frustrated that they faced such a battle to get this far, and the man they believe responsible for her death will never face justice. So it looks like there is going to be a Daily Tea podcast about the murder of Julie Ward and her family's fight for justice on the audio player. So it looks like they have a different podcast related. This is from let me get up to the top here. Bloop, bloop, bloop. This is from the Telegraph. This is definitely a case I'm going to look more into. It's heartbreaking that this family was let down so terribly by the investigation. Look, for whatever motivations are behind it, they didn't do a good job. And now that means that justice on this earth may never be attainable. And that just sucks out loud. Because if she was tortured for a week long, I'd like you to meet someone, Mr. Moi. That being said, justice is not generally ours to mete out in this world. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe Satan could work on, adjusting his attitude in the hereafter forever. As always, thank you guys. I know this is a longer video, but I do like doing these longer articles and learning about cases that I didn't know about that maybe I want to look at further. My heart goes out to Julie Ward's family and the pain of never knowing the truth. And what a badass dad to never give up, to call the, investigators out all the time, and for the brother to take up that mantle now that his father has passed. Heartbreaking, infuriating, but enlightening all at the same time. And hopefully these small little bits of answers give them at least a little bit of closure, a little bit of insight into what the hell went wrong, because holy cow, did a lot. And Julie Ward seemed like a beautiful young lady, and I hope her spirit is free to, just be happy and away from the torture and pain of her final moments. As always, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire because, kindness doesn't equal doormat, you guys. Bye.